In the photo for the audio recording, there's a picture of Qaraite ṣsiṣsit, which looks similar but also look different from rabbinic ṣsiṣsit. And I put the picture there so that you would see that Karaite Jews actually have an oral tradition of their own. They have their own interpretations of the Tanakh, contrary to what you would think in regard to how they identify themselves, or as Bnei Mikra or Qaraim, meaning those who follow the writings. There's maybe an incomplete idea of who they are, in that people think that they follow the Tanakh only, and that's not exactly the case, because the Karaite Jews have their own oral tradition. Just like the rabbinic Jews, they have their oral tradition. It's just that they don't accept the oral tradition of the rabbis. They accepted the oral tradition of their scholars, and there's a list of them, and their view of the Tanakh certainly was different than the rabbinic tradition. They have women scholars who they consider authoritative, and they also have a certain view of prayer and prostration, and the way they tie their ṣsiṣsit. And they also have books of halakha. There's one particular book called the Palanquin, or in Hebrew, it's from the phrase comes from the book of Shir HaShirim, which states in chapter 3, verse 9, Apiryon A3seh Lo Shlomo. So it's King Solomon made him a palanquin. It's like a wood chariot. That's the language, and Shir HaShirim is quite poetic. But they use that phrase to title their one of their books of halakha. And in this book, it's pretty interesting. It's on practical halakha for Karaite Jews by Ḥakham Solomon Ben Aaron. I'm going to quote one of their writings on the commandment of ṣsiṣsit and the conditions of dressing. I'm just going to read the beginning of it, just as an insight into their method of oral law and halakha. So in regard to the mitzvah of ṣsiṣsit, they state, and this is in the book Apiryon A3seh Lo, chapter 17, page 115. At the end of the parasha Shalach Lecha, it is written, bid them that they make them throughout their generations fringes, or ṣsiṣsit, on the corners of their garments. And this is from Bemidbar, chapter 15, 38. Our sages interpreted the word ṣsiṣsit as being associated with the concept of seeing, like they can see it and look at it. As we find a related word in a pasuk, he peers, or mesis, through the lattice. And this is from Shir HaShirim, or Song of Songs, chapter 2, verse 9. The meaning of the verse on ṣsiṣsit is to make a sign on one's garment, so that when one sees it, one will remember the commandments of God and not sin in one's business dealings or other activities. This was the custom during the time of the monarchy in the Holy Land, but today, when we are dispersed to all corners of the exile, the sages have established a fence so that this commandment not fall into complete disuse, that we should wear a four-cornered garment, or talith, with ṣsiṣsit. This is a prayer shawl with the fringes on the four corners during the times of tefillah, or the times of prayer, and when fulfilling a commandment such as circumcision. So it's an interesting note that they make, that they're sages. It's consideration of sages making rulings for their time. It's a similar practice of a talith gadol that rabbinic Jews have, and so that's the oral tradition side. But looking at the view that they have to try to interpret the commandments from within the Tanakh itself, I think that's really interesting. They quote this pasuk from Shir HaShirim chapter 2, he peereth through the lattice, mesis, and they tie that to ṣsiṣsit. And it sounds like they're trying to say that the mitzvah meant that you should wear ṣsiṣsit in such a way that you can actually see the ṣsiṣsit. An interesting note is that the Sephardic Jews did have a custom based on Kabbalah to tuck their tzitzit in. So you couldn't actually see the ṣsiṣsit. The individual who was wearing ṣsiṣsit would know they had them on. And I guess it was commonly known among the community that people would wear them tucked in, but you couldn't actually see it. So it actually kind of went contrary to the, you could say, pashat level of the mitzvah. And this practice again was based on Kabbalah, and there's a whole debate on Kabbalah in Halakha, which I'm not learned enough to even speak on at all. So I'll end this video or recording and say thank you again for listening.